Welcome to this pelvic floor friendly workout for men for resistance training exercises in the gym. Hi, I'm Michelle, and today we're going through a pelvic floor safe or friendly resistance training workout for those of you that might have weak pelvic floor muscles. Maybe you have bladder leakage, you might have erectile dysfunction, you might be trying to return to exercise after prostate surgery, radical prostatectomy, or you might be living with pelvic floor muscle spasm and trying to exercise. Now, these exercises we're going to go through as a whole routine. It's going to be demonstrated for you. We're going to go through 7 of the most common strength training exercises in the gym. We'll go through each exercise in turn, and what we'll do is we'll look at some modifications to make those exercises more pelvic floor friendly, so reduce the pressure on your pelvic floor, and also too that I'll provide you with some alternative exercises that you can do as well. So we'll start with legs and back, then we'll go through to chest, shoulders. We'll start with squat exercise because this is one of the classic gym training exercises that can really load the pelvic floor. Now, we know that research has shown that with a deep, wide-legged squat, you can imagine the pressure pushing down on the pelvic floor at the deep point of that squat, particularly if you've got a heavy load and particularly if your legs are wide apart. There's a lot of pressure downwards on the pelvic floor, on the bladder. So how to modify this? Well, the first thing you can do, and you can see these on screen, these modifications, is to squat to a smaller depth. Use a lighter weight. So to actually squat to your smaller depth, you can then bring your feet closer together with the squat and take the bar above your shoulders, lighter weight, and just make it a smaller depth squat that you can actually see on here rather than going into a full deep squat. This is particularly important if you have hemorrhoids or if you're a man with rectal prolapse. That deep point of the squat is, and also too with pelvic pain, that deep point of the squat is a lot of pressure on the pelvic floor. So you don't actually have to do a deep squat to work your quads and to work your glutes. You can still do that with a shallower squat. Now, the ideal alternative exercise for this, as you can see on screen, is a lunge exercise. And you can just do your lunges with your dumbbells. So dumbbell lunges, you can do them just on the spot. You could do traveling lunges. These are a great exercise, much more pelvic floor friendly, much more pelvic floor friendly than the full squat, but not putting as much load because you're not having to lean forward. In that lean forward position, you can stay upright and you're not overloading your pelvic floor. Obviously, still when you're starting out, you'll modify how much you lift in terms of weights and start with your standing lunges first of all with the right form. Now let's move on to the second exercise, which is a deadlift. Deadlift is a really commonly performed exercise in the gym, obviously for strengthening your buttocks and also to your lower back. Now, deadlift can be associated with injuries. Many of you might already be experienced with low back issues. And typically you can see the deadlift is performed here by lifting the weight off the ground in that lean forward, again, heavy weighted position. So doing that in that lean forward position really increases the load at that point that you're actually taking the load off the ground. So that's where you're going to actually experience most of the pressure on your pelvic floor in that setup position when you're lowering the weight back down and near ground level. So what you can actually do to modify this is obviously, as we've already talked about, decreasing the weight on the bar. One of the great ways of modifying this exercise is to actually just start from knee height. So if you can actually have the bar at knee height or above to actually lift it off the rack, and then with your deadlift position, and again with your lighter weight that I've already discussed, then starting from that standing position, lower the weight down, or lower the bar down to your knee height, and then exhale or breathe out as you come back up into standing. You will still make some great gains with your lower back muscles, with your glutes, but you'll minimise that loading, that extreme loading that occurs when you're really in that deep bend forward position that actually can overload the pelvic floor, which is not great after you've had prostate surgery and during your recovery. It's not great with weak muscles causing erectile dysfunction or bladder leakage. And some of you will already know that. This is a great way of modifying it. Now, if you're seeking an alternative exercise to the deadlift, a great alternative is the back extension machine. It also strengthens same muscles, lower back and also to the glutes. Now, one of the tricks to activating your glutes more in this exercise is by actually turning your toes outwards. So when you're actually on the machine, rather than having your legs parallel and toes facing down, if you turn your toes outwards, it gives you more glute activation, so more buttock activation. And when you extend, if you can start, obviously when you're starting out in the gym, arms across your chest, avoiding too much hyperextension, but coming down from that lower position, you can see on screen now, you can come up then into that horizontal position, maybe a little bit of extension, not too much in the back, but then you can start to load that as well. And you exhale as you lift up, and then you inhale as you move back down. You want to decrease the amount of intra-abdominal pressure or pressure downwards on the pelvic floor as you're bending back down. So I'll repeat that again. So you breathe out as you lift up, and then you breathe in as you lower back down. And gradually you can increase the weight with that exercise as well. Now, third exercise, hooray, bench. So bench, obviously everyone's favourite. It's quite a pelvic floor friendly exercise anyway because you are lying down. I think the risk with the bench is lifting too much of a heavy weight and straining with the exercise. So you can reduce your weight, the weight that you're actually pressing. One of the key elements for this exercise is to keep the curve, the inward curve in the lower back during the exercise. Now you can see on screen how that's being modified to keep that curve in the arch of the lower back in that space, especially as you press up. So what you actually do is keeping the arch, and you breathe out as you press up, and then you breathe back in as you lower the weight down, keeping the arch there throughout. If you flatten the back out, then you start to increase pressure on the pelvic floor. So that's something just to watch out for with your bench press. And if you wanted to make that a whole lot lighter on your pelvic floor, you could do a single arm bench press with a dumbbell if you wanted to really reduce the loading on your pelvic floor. But that lying down position is a great position for exercising in, usually for the pelvic floor muscles and reducing loading on the pelvic floor. Now, fourth exercise is start with rows. Rows are a wonderful exercise for strengthening your postural muscles, your back muscles in particular, and also the back of your arms. Now, with this exercise, you can modify this obviously by going a lighter weight and exhaling or breathing out with the raise. But what you can do instead, in a much more pelvic floor friendly way, particularly if you've got pelvic floor dysfunction, is by doing a single arm row on a bench. So with the body supported in that lean forward position, make sure you've got one arm on the bench, elbow obviously bent slightly to act as a spring to reduce the loading in through your shoulder, and the other arm down. And then you can go into that low row. You can start with a lighter weight, you can exhale with the lift, and when you're in that lean forward position with the body supported, it's a lovely pelvic floor friendly way of doing your low row. It's a nice modification on that exercise, and you can do that either with the bench flat, or you can do it with the bench slightly higher on an angle as well. Make sure you've got the inward curve in your lower back. Make sure you breathe out with the lift and gradually progress your weights as you get stronger so that you're not straining with any of the exercises. So let's talk about pull-ups and chin-ups. Now, it really depends on the grip that you use as to which muscles that you're using the most. As you can see here, commonly performed is the narrow grip with the arms close together. And this grip is obviously for encouraging your bicep muscles and also to your chest muscles, but it also activates your core muscles. And a lot of men are inclined to bring their knees forwards in this position. So when you do that and bring your knees forward, this activates, and bend your knees up, this activates the core muscles, your strong outer core muscles. And when you activate these muscles, this can increase pressure down on the pelvic floor, and this is well established in the scientific research. Now, the way you can modify this exercise to use your shoulders and also still to train your shoulders and your back is the wide grip. Now, the wide grip in this manner, the wide overarm grip or the overhand grip, is going to use your lats more, but it allows your legs to be straight or tucked up behind you rather than curled up in front of you with your knees bent. So you want to try and avoid that knees bent to chest position in favour of having the legs straight and having the legs out behind. And if you still wanted to work your biceps with this, in terms of modifying this exercise or alternative exercises, do your seated curls. So rather than doing your curls two at once, do alternate curls, do them seated, which is even better. Or you could use the easy curl bar if you wanted to do doubles as well. That sitting position is much more pelvic floor friendly than standing curls. Let's move along now more to specific upper body, chest and shoulders. Let's start with the shoulder press. Now the shoulder press or overhead press you can see being performed here in standing. Again, that standing loading can be really readily modified if you need to modify this with pelvic floor dysfunction or with pelvic floor muscle weakness. Simple way to modify the double-handed overhead press is to actually just do them in sitting, and you can do alternate arms one at a time. That's a really nice way of modifying it, as well as exhaling, so breathing out as you raise your arms, breathing in as you lower your arms, and keeping the inward curve in your lower back, keeping that nice tall posture as well with that exercise. Now let's move along to tricep dips. Tricep dips are a really commonly performed exercise in the gym, as we all know, for strengthening the back of the muscles in the back of your arms, the tricep muscles. Now, if you're using body-supported triceps on a tricep dip machine, you can see that can be the inclination to bring the knees up again towards the chest, just as we were talking about with the chin-up bar or the pull-up bar. So what you can do to modify this exercise is the following. You can use a modified tricep dip machine that actually assists you. So you can see the assisted machine on screen now. And this is a nice way to reduce loading on your pelvic floor. So a nice way of modifying this exercise if you're using a tricep dip bar is to use a step. So you can use a step to actually get yourself up onto the tricep dip bar with your arms fully extended, and then just lower your body down to the ground, as you can see here. So rather than pushing yourself up, which is the part of the exercise that's going to create the most increase in pressure down on your pelvic floor. So what you do is you step up, arms extended, and then start by lowering yourself down. This is a really nice way of moving into the exercise. And even if you're someone who wants to start doing dips, this is a nice way to start. Start with your eccentric, lowering down first of all, exhaling as you do so, and then stepping back up onto the tricep dip machine. The other thing you can do is do tricep dips on a bench. And again, you can see the modifications here. If you've got your legs extended out in front, the tricep dips are going to be more challenging and more pressure on your pelvic floor. If you move your feet back in, as you can see on the screen, with your knees bent and your feet underneath your knees, you're going to use much less pressure on your pelvic floor. Tricep dips are going to be much more pelvic floor friendly, particularly if you're getting back into exercise after prostate surgery, or if you're suffering from erectile dysfunction or pelvic floor muscle weakness. This is a nice way to do your triceps and to start out. You can then progress to the more difficult or challenging exercises over time as your pelvic floor condition improves. So there you have it. I think you can see there's a number of ways that we can actually modify the really commonly performed exercises, strength training, resistance exercises for men in the gym, and make them much more pelvic floor friendly. We know that resistance exercise is really beneficial for erectile dysfunction, and it's great that you can actually get in and do your leg exercises, do your leg strength exercises in a pelvic floor safe manner to improve your erectile function, and also to recover after prostate surgery, and also to exercise if you've had further pelvic floor surgery or if you're suffering from bladder incontinence issues. So I really hope this information helps you. Always welcome your questions and comments in the section below, and also don't forget to give this video a like, thumbs up, if you've found the information helpful today. So coming up next, we've got some exercises, men's strength exercises that can increase the load on the pelvic floor. And some of these exercises are commonly described as pelvic floor exercises, when in fact they're not. So you might like to stay with me for that video coming up next. Otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching today. Goodbye for now.